Happy you could be here. We are joined as always by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a food and wine sommelier of the year. The group includes Columbia Firehouse and Vermilion in Old Town. Also, you've got Planet Wine and Evening Star Cafe in the Del Rey neighborhood. Greg, always good to see you.
See you too, Brian.
What's on tap this week?
So this week I figured, since we're here at Bluejacket, our brewery, we should drink a little Lost Weekend, which is become kind of our flagship IPA. I talked a little while back about how one of the greatest things about Bluejacket now in its second year of operation is that we're starting to find our standard flagship beers and keep them on tap all the time. So we have about 5 or 6 different beers that are always on tap here, and then all the rest still continue to change and rotate as always. But the fun thing about that especially is that we keep brewing these beers again and again, and we get to tweak them over time and as we go. So this is a hyper fresh new batch of Lost Weekend, and I think it's definitely the best one we've done to date. It's really nice and dry and juicy, not too bitter. This is hopped exclusively with Citra hops from the Pacific Northwest, from Washington State.
Oh, vive la Washington State,
yeah, it's
my native land. I mean, I always love coming here and seeing what your new offerings might be, but if something's just on paper, at least, not grabbing me, that's my Bluejacket go-to.
Absolutely, and that's the cool thing about the tasters too. I mean, like, you come in here, get a taste of a couple of the new things, and then just go back to this, or like Forbidden Planet if you want a lower alcohol, sessionable beer.
Full Bloom, which we had two or three weeks ago. That's dynamite.
And the other cool thing I think too, for as far as becoming a brewery that is rebrewing beers and dedicated to brewing certain beers in volume, is that, well, it's in preparation of eventual partial distribution. So when we start shipping our beers out of Bluejacket to other accounts, we got to stand by some consistent volume-based beers like Forbidden Planet or Lost Weekend, and then still innovating to find out what our next standard beer is going to be, and just seeing what we can create. But the other major thing for us is hop contracts. So we started out brewing Lost Weekend with just whatever Citra we could get our hands on. Citra is a newish hop varietal from the Pacific Northwest that's big, huge, obvious citrus in the nose, but lots of grassy qualities as well, some earth and pith. It was pretty difficult to get our hands on it in consistent supply, so we were lucky to be able to get a hop contract, which started with the 2014 fall harvest through a hop buyer called 47 Hops in Yakima, Washington. And so now we have a consistent supply of Citra, but even better, it's the same Citra. So we know how it's going to react when we brew with it, and we can kind of hone in better. In the old days, we were just using lots of different types of Citra, and we'd get kind of varying results from it. Sure. But now we've got some great consistency as well.
When you make a beer like this, when you start out, do you, and I'm sure you don't say, well, we want to make it like Stone X or Lagunitas this, but do you take any inspiration from maybe a favorite beer and
Absolutely.
And we like this quality about it, let's see what we can do with it.
Right, yeah, I think it's just kind of like, it always starts with beers that you love. You know what I mean? Because nothing exists in a vacuum. You're inspired and influenced by anything you've drank. So it's like, we talk about it like when we talk about the palate. Like, we want that kind of juicy bitterness that we get from X. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it.
Sure.
And certainly if you can get there, which I think we're getting there with this, it's going to take brewing and brewing and brewing to be like, there's so many things you can alter, and you only want to tweak one thing at a time. So there's that. There's aromatics you're going for. And the big thing with IPAs, one of the big things about IPAs is it's not just the hops, it's a lot to do with the yeast that you're using. The yeast is going to create even mild fruity esters and phenolic spices that are going to influence the way that the hops are perceived. So we've used actually 3 different yeasts on this beer with this Citra hops to get to where we are now with it. And that's something that was influenced by beers like Bell's Two Hearted Ale, where that's all Centennial, but it doesn't taste like anybody else's Centennial hopped IPA because they use a particular yeast on it. So even if it's a general broad influence, there's certainly influence coming at us from all angles.
What gives it this very attractive hue and consistency, for lack of a better word?
So what we do with this, we don't filter or use this, or centrifuge any of our beers here. Everything is natural. We don't want to pull anything out of the beer. That said, this particular yeast that we use here is a problematic trouble child of a yeast because it doesn't flocculate as well as other yeasts. Meaning, after the beer is done fermenting, there's yeast that's in suspension. Certain yeasts drop down much faster than others, and those are preferred by most brewers. This yeast doesn't do that as well, but we love the flavors it creates. So
it doesn't want to leave.
Doesn't want to leave. So what we do with this instead is if we just served it completely unfiltered, it would be really, really hazy, near milky. And at the same time, we don't want to let it to mature in lager and tank for a month, or else we lose all that hop character that's fresh in the nose. So we use something called BioFine. It's a vegan-friendly fining agent that basically clears up the particulate matter. And we just use a little bit of it to knock out some of the haze, but we don't want it to be crystal. It doesn't need to be crystal clear, and so that's how we get that kind of mildly that unfiltered look.
And you mentioned already maybe the ABV.
This is
7.3.
It's 7.3 now. It was in the old days. It was a little bit lower in alcohol, and we've actually increased the alcohol because we're fermenting it to fuller dryness on the palate, so there's less sugar left at the end of it. And so that's one of the tweaks we've been making with it. It's increase the alcohol, which is a good thing or a bad thing depending on time of day or how many beers you've had.
The first pitch.
Yeah. But we love the way it plays on the palate at 7.3.
What do you pair it with here?
I love the citrus notes in this are really great, and I think the bitterness is juicy without being intense. So what I've been actually pairing it with, I can't get enough guacamole. I don't know if you like guacamole.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't get enough of it recently. So, and I drink a lot of this at home, as you can imagine. So this is
he gets
awesome
a discount.
With that. Yeah, I do. But it's awesome with that, and then you can just take that out to the next level. It's great with Tex-Mex of all kind, like enchiladas. It's just got this beautiful bitterness to dig into richness, citric, like grassy notes to play with the seasonings of Tex-Mex. It's awesome.
Give me that mole sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.